Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, JMILLER. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the JMILLER Podcast. Brock Covington, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad to have you here.
Doing good. I'm doing good. I appreciate you bringing me on, especially since you were my first guest.
Yeah, dude. You're the first Zoom or remote recording for me. So
yeah,
I saw you got in like a nice 3-hour trail run this morning.
Yeah, dude. I'm running off endorphins right now, so you got me in a good mood, which is good. I'm a little drained from it, but yeah, it was 3 hours prepping for that. I got a 50K in 4 weeks, and then the 54 miler that you're doing the 50K version of. And I think 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks, something like that. So slowly working up that volume. It's been going really well. I think this will be like my highest training volume week I've had since I was marathon training in 2020 or 2021. Just, with injuries and stuff like that, I finally been able to build that up. But yeah, 3-hour run, met up with somebody that I haven't met before on the East Coast. We've kind of followed each other for a while. So connecting with somebody, getting a great run in, and a little ice bath before or after the run as well. So that's great. And the little known secret that Jeremy won't let you guys know is that the beauty of running is on long runs, you can absolutely obliterate food after with zero shame. So I crushed a bowl of cereal before this, so I'm good. I'm feeling
that's why
good.
We do it, right? We're just like fat kids at heart. We just want to go run so we can eat all the food afterwards.
Yeah, well, that was one of the cool things when I got into lifting 8 years ago was I was like, oh man, not only can I should eat a lot of food so I can kind of bulk and put on muscle, gain weight, blah, blah, blah. But then the more muscle I have, the higher my metabolism, the even more I can eat. And so through a bunch of bulk cut phases, I remember at one point, I was maintaining weight, eating 3,800 a day, and I was like, "This is life, this is beautiful."
Dude, speaking of cutting and bodybuilding, I didn't realize that you were a bodybuilder before you got into running and this hybrid style of training. I was creeping on your Instagram the other day when I was prepping for this, and I found a pic of Brock just tan as can be, lean as can be, dude. Tell me about that whole experience. I never knew you were a bodybuilder.
So yeah, that was my first love. My first baby was bodybuilding, and got into it like everybody else, 14, 15 years old. Felt like I looked like a bottle of mayonnaise, and I was like, what girl wants to be with that, And switched that up, was, playing baseball through my life, but I was just, kind of chubby growing up. I wasn't fat, but I was chubby, and I wasn't going to lose the weight naturally by just getting taller going through puberty. So I started lifting weights, specifically free weights, about 14 years old. And fell in love with bodybuilding. It was my baby, my everything. I was my fitness pal every day, macro dieting, lifting 6 days a week, and just absorbing everything on YouTube. And it's side note, it's funny seeing how the YouTube fitness culture has changed from when I was watching. It was just regular dudes made YouTube videos. It was camcorder, iPhone footage. I'm just literally showing you what I'm doing today. And nowadays you got these camera crews at these bougie gyms. Everybody at the gym has a tripod. Everyone has an Instagram. Everyone has a YouTube. Everyone's making content. But when I was watching people and when I kind of first started a little bit making my own stuff, it was rare to go into a gym and actually see other young people lifting. And making content, having a tripod or a camera was absurd to have in a commercial gym. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, when it comes to the bodybuilding stuff, did that for, I said, years. And the thing with
How old are you now?
23 now. So
Okay.
I started at 14. So, 8, almost 9 years of strength training. And the funny thing with bodybuilding that's harder for most people is because it's a very objective sport, or not objective, subjective. It's a subjective sport because it's your physique. One, it's the progress just isn't immediate. It takes a really long time, and you kind of develop. I think there's a healthy balance of body dysmorphia. We could get into that, but there's this idea that once you reach a certain physique, you still want to pursue that next physique and so forth. So I spent like 4 or 5 years before I ever competed, which is what you're referencing. And so I spent basically my entire high school, so like 4 years of lifting, trying to build up my physique. And I went through a lot of phases of bulks and cuts, which for reference, bulking is where you're deliberately putting on weight, typically slowly. So that's what you would call like a lean bulk, is doing it slowly. And slowly is in maybe like 1 to 2 pounds a month, ideally. Some people will go a little bit more aggressive, called dirty bulking, where you're just pounding on food. And the advantage of that is you're able to put weight on faster, put muscle on a little bit faster. The extra food you're eating allows you to push harder in the gym and so forth. But because you're more aggressive with it, you put on more fat. If you do a more lean bulk approach, like I said, maybe 1 to 2 pounds a month, you do it over a 6 to 8 month period. Maybe you gain, I don't know, 10 to 14 pounds over that period. Maybe like 6 to 8 pounds of that is muscle rather than the majority being fat. And people kind of underestimate how hard it is to gain muscle. Because if you gain like 1 or 2 actual pounds of lean muscle tissue, really nice, really good job, And so anyway, I went through a lot of these phases of bulks and cuts. The cuts, for reference, are again just slow, sustainable paces of losing, trying to strip away the body fat while still retaining the muscle. You'll lose a little bit of the muscle, but again, if you do a slow approach, continue strength training, continue pushing hard in the gym, you will be able to maintain most of the muscle tissue and obviously strip away, look lean, look good for the beach, whatever the case may be, or competition, as we're kind of getting to. So 4 or 5 years of that, and I got to a place where I was like, all right, I'm a freshman in college. I've kind of gotten away from the, gentle or in the shadows bullying of high school, where people kind of like poking fun at, you're like lifting weights, so look at you bringing around your water jug and things like that.
People made fun of you for lifting weights?
Of course. Well, see, that's the thing that people don't understand now, and it's funny because I'll see my wife's younger brother who's in middle school now, and the kids, because of TikTok, more kids are into lifting now. And it's more normal. It's more normalized for like younger kids to be lifting or posting content or flexing in the mirror and all that. But when I was doing it, and even still to an extent, like people would just give you shit. They'd be like, "Oh, you think you're big, blah blah blah." And of course, I'm not big. I'm like still $170. I barely have some muscle, but I do have something, But yeah, kids will kind of poke fun at you, like, "Oh, what are you lifting for?" Blah blah blah. That's stupid. Because the only people who were lifting were like football players, So yeah, I definitely got some like shit for that. But the thing with lifting for me was, it was like and I miss it. And I say I miss it because I don't have the same, I still love lifting. I do it every day, disciplined, excited about it or not, I do it every day. But there was a magic in high school where you're coming up and, when you're younger lifting, progress comes so fast. And it's still slow, but relatively fast because you're new to something. Just like running, right? You've experienced this. Once you start running, you're really excited about it. You're so passionate about it. You're making PRs all the time. You're getting better so quickly. And it's just like that with lifting. And when you're seeing your body change so much, it is just so exciting and fulfilling to see that change. And really cool to just be able to manipulate, I want this body part to be bigger or this body part to be better, and actually being able to like manipulate that and change it through hard work and dedication and so forth. So lifting for me, as I talk about this with my wife because it was a bit this way for her as well. It was like my time. Like I'd go through school was like torturous. I just go through school. I didn't have like the worst time. I had friends, blah, blah, but I wasn't, I was a bit of like an outcast, kind of purposefully on my own way. And I just did my own thing, had some friends, but I wouldn't go to parties. I didn't spend time going to the like school events or games because I was working at a gym on the weekends and on Friday nights. And then, but what I would do after school every day, I'd come home, and this is part of the kind of whole bulk thing, so entertain me for a minute. But I come home like 4 o'clock. I pound a whole sleeve of, what rice cakes are?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd have a whole like sleeve of chocolate rice cakes. So like 7 of those with peanut butter. And so that's like 400 calories. So that'd be like my fuel. And then I'd usually, the pre-workout meal that I would eat around like 5:30, 6 o'clock, because I try and get in after the work, crash or work rush that people would come in at 5 or 6 o'clock. I try and get there like 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And I'd have some kind of meal. Sometimes it'd be banana, protein shake, chicken and rice, whatever it is before workout. but I'd go there, and that was like what I would look forward to all day long. All day I'm in class, I'm looking up like, muscleandfitness.com or bodybuilding.com. And I'm looking up, certain exercises to do, or learning about this, or this is what Dorian Yates, program used to be back in the day. And I'd be like, oh, let me try that today. And it was just something to look forward to at the end of the day. So I'd be going through school and I'm like, man, I just can't wait to get out of here. Go do what I want to do, take some pre-workout, zone in on myself. It's like, it was like my time, my me time. And I had like, I didn't have other responsibilities. So it was like my pure kind of passion and focus versus now once you get older, you get other things going on. You've been doing it for a while. You've kind of tried every exercise that there is to try. It's not as exciting and new and fresh as it once was. So I'm digressing here, but that's a little bit of an insider picture into all of that. But then into the competing itself, and then please interject with any questions you have.
Oh no, I love it. I love it.
But I got to I wanted to compete. I wanted to see what my physique would look like. I've never got like real show lean. And what I mean by show lean for people who aren't in the bodybuilding space is,
that's me.
Yeah, it's something like, so like you see somebody with abs on the beach, they're like roughly 10% body fat. 10% is usually where people start to see a little bit of surface abs. But bodybuilding shows can be anywhere from like 4 to 8%. Really close to like 6 or 7% body fat is where, your abs are hard and lean. You got veins coming out everywhere. And, one thing that people reference is like this Christmas tree back. So if you could look on like my back flex picture or whatever, to toot my own horn, my back usually stayed pretty lean. Everyone has certain body parts that hold more or less fat, blah, blah, blah. But my back's pretty lean. And when a person has a really lean back, those erectors right above their glutes, will kind of have this like ribbed look and kind of like a triangle shape. People reference it like a Christmas tree. Or another funny thing to think about is when people have really shredded glutes and really lean glutes, they call it walnut glutes. So I didn't get
you were cut up in that picture that I saw. I was like, damn, like it barely even looked like you. I mean, just because you were in that stage of your fitness.
Yeah. Again, that's the leanest I've ever been, and I haven't been there again. And, I didn't get crazy lean. I did look very lean there, and those are like the best I looked. That was actually like a week before the show. But I started that cut around like 180 pounds, I think. And then I got down to the lowest I was 162. So about, like 18 to 20 pounds I lost during that cut. And I did it over about 14 to 16 weeks. And I actually vlogged all of it. It's still on my YouTube, so if you go over to, to plug myself, go over to my YouTube, and it's like, I think the earliest videos I have like publicly posted, it has like a whole series called The Prep or something like that, but I kind of show everything. I show each week like what my calories are, macros, and cardio, and so you can see I did it really slow, and actually by the end of it, I was still eating a good bit of food. I was doing maybe 6 days of cardio, and I was doing, I think I was still eating like 22, 23, maybe 400 calories. So it wasn't like I was starving myself. And the funny thing is when you get that lean and your body's rolling and your metabolism's crushing it and you kind of get in a groove, your body almost, like when it's called like a, oh shoot, what is the term? It's like refill or refuel. Of course it's slipping my mind, but, basically, the idea refeed. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
I know bodybuilding.
There you go. The bodybuilder himself, JMILLER, IFBB Pro. But anyway, it's refeed. Yeah. So like when you refeed, so like I had 3 days in a row. This was maybe 3 weeks out from the show. 3 days in a row where I would eat like a Chipotle bowl because I was like, man, I'm losing weight a little too fast. So like, let me do a refeed. It'll help boost my metabolism, give my body a break from being in this deficit state. And the funny thing is I had 3 days in a row where I would do that and I'd be even lower, be even lighter in weight. And I kept going. And I was like, I'm just going to keep eating like Chipotle bowls until I'm not. And so it took like till like the 4th day. And I finally, wasn't still losing weight. All that to say, if you do it if you do it in a slow way, you've spent years working up your metabolism. by the time you start the cut, like I started the cut at like 3,800 calories. So I still dropped them a lot, but because I'd worked them up over time, I was able to lose weight without having to starve myself or get in a really ridiculous state. Like some people will eat 1,400 calories, like especially women fall into this trap a lot when they compete, especially the bikini divisions, and they'll be eating like 1,000 calories, a day for like those later weeks, and they're just, emaciated. So it can be really unhealthy. That's a whole side of bodybuilding, but. So I got pretty lean, I guess like 8 or 9% body fat. I was pretty shredded, as you mentioned, 162 pounds. I came in, second in my novice class, and the guy that beat me in the novice class ended up winning the overall, and I came in like the fourth on the overall. It was like fairly competitive. I thought my posing was actually better than everybody, but the guy that beat me, I mean, he was like more muscular, but his posing was like a little bit goofy, which again, it's subjective. It's a very subjective sport. It's just like a beauty pageant in the sense that what I like in a physique more, someone else might dislike, and they might like look for something else. But usually the right guy still wins for the most part with some of these things. But it's an interesting sport, and what I learned from that was one, I could really like see all the hard work I did and just see how I can manipulate myself, control my weight, control my body. Because that's a lot of things, or it's one of those things that people feel helpless with when they don't understand their body, their nutrition or exercise, is that, I can't keep the weight off, or I can't seem to lose weight. And it's because they don't know how much they're eating. They don't know, they're not in tune with that. They're not in tune with how satiated a certain food makes them versus, another food. So, I was able to kind of grab those skills. And another thing I learned from it was, I don't really like competing. Like I didn't really like the actual show itself of getting on stage and my underwear and posing. I enjoyed like posing and the process, but that's what I love, the process. I didn't love the actual let me show off in front of random people and get tan and this and that. I like the actual process of stripping things down and like pushing myself, just as we do with running. It's pushing yourself in a more disciplined way. It's an odd sport because the actual work itself isn't as hard as a running workout or isn't as hard as some of these other difficult sports. However, the discipline is 24/7. Unlike any other sport, your sleep has to be on point. Your diet has to be on point every day. Especially when it comes closer to show, your water, your sodium levels need to be on point so that you're not, bloated on stage. You're training hard all the time. You're making sure you're recovering. And then if you add in the whole steroids element of it, that's a whole wide array of things you need to have dialed in properly so that you're not messing up your hormones, you're not, screwing up your liver, blah, blah, blah. So it's a wild sport. But that is my extremely long-winded answer of saying, yes, bodybuilding was my first baby and first love.
Dude, that's you read my mind right there at the end where you kind of touched on just the discipline required. I have a massive respect and appreciation for people that do bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not a bodybuilder. I've never really gotten into bodybuilding. But like you mentioned, it's just that I feel like with running, which is obviously more of my niche, is like I'm used to just going out and putting in a hard effort for like the workouts for the physical aspect, and then the diet. Obviously, like I try to have a good diet and eat well and eat whole foods and eat enough calories and stuff, but it just doesn't have to be as dialed in and on point as it does with bodybuilding. So I just have a massive respect for that sport as a whole. Do you feel like you'll ever do another bodybuilding show? Do you have any desire to do that?
I kind of want to do a show purely just to see how my physique has changed from all this functional stuff and this running. For example, like from all the running, which I've been, for reference, I've been running for about like 3 years now. And I used to hold a lot of fat in my glutes. Used to have a fat ass, and and used to hold a lot of
unit,
absolute unit. And I used to hold a lot of fat in my legs. And now from all the running, I've like lost my ass, and my legs are a lot thinner. They still have muscle to them. No, she doesn't. There's there's still some fat to them, but it's just interesting how my physique's changed. I've, definitely got a thicker core, which isn't as, washboard style as you might want for bodybuilding. But as far as like athletically, I think I look, better in some aspects and different in others. And so interesting in that aspect. And then another thing that I've kind of teased with Maddie recently is after I run this 100-mile ultra race, I think I want to still, do a 50K or 50 miler each year. But I kind of just want to do like 100-miler. and kind of get out of the ultra running space for a bit, just because one, I don't have any aspirations, I think, to do the whole 200 and keep going. Of course, I say that, who knows?
It's a
But at
slippery
least
slope.
it is a slippery slope. It is a hell of a drug. But I want to get that 100 miler in, and then I kind of want to get back to a little bit of bodybuilding training, not to compete, but purely, it's just fun, man. Like, it's simple enough because with bodybuilding, you're chasing a nasty pump. So you're just trying to pump blood, feel as great as possible. You're still doing a lot of strength work. You're still doing bench squat, deadlift. You're still doing overhead press. You're still doing hard exercises. But the goal is just go in there, push yourself hard, push close to failure. You're not just maxing out everything, but you're pushing close to failure. You're pumping blood. You're isolating things. You're focusing on stretch, range of motion, all these things. And you can just go in there and just push yourself versus, with some of this conditioning stuff and CrossFit and a little bit whatever you want to call that I've been getting into and strength training, it's, more percentages. It's more, timing. It's more, all right, set up the clock. It's EMOM. It's circuits. And that stuff can be fun, and it is fun. But sometimes I just want to go in there and just kind of be like meathead and have fun and get a good pump and feel great. I don't want to have to check what my RPE is or my percentages, It like puts like the science added to it, takes the fun out a little bit, if that makes sense.
I think I always say that strength training and lifting is good. It feels good. It's good for your body. And then running is good for your mind.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because I think there's definitely a mental clarity that comes from running. And I'm sure you can get it from lifting as well. Like you talked about, in high school when you first started getting into it, where you can go in and you can just, put music on and dial in and just be in your own world. But I do think that running or just endurance sports in general can offer more of mental gains than strength training can. Would you agree with that? Or has that been your experience?
Yeah, what running does is it forces you to be hyper-focused on the present moment, which is really rare to happen because a lot of times we're thinking about work, we're thinking about life, about your spouse, about what work you got to do, like I said, later, and we get distracted by the future moments, but we're not living in the future, right? And so what running forces us to do is be very present in the moment. We can't have our phone out, although, you and me both post content on our phone when we're running sometimes, but for the most part,
it's such a small percentage of our runs, though.
Exactly. So for the vast majority of your run, if not the entire run, you don't have your phone, you don't have technology. You might have little headphones, but you're completely isolated and fixated, and your mind is fixated on the present moment, on the activity that you're doing, on your surroundings. And there's a beauty in that solitude, and that peace, and then in that isolation and kind of sensory deprivation from all the external stimuli we deal with every day. And so I like that you mentioned that it is very much a mental exercise because it does bring such clarity. You can get some of that with lifting, but what I found is a tip is, go in airplane mode on your phone. If you're going to go in the gym, go airplane mode, take out, the Wi-Fi, download your playlist, and that way you don't get notifications, you don't get Instagram popping up on your phone. If you try and open up YouTube or Instagram, it won't work. That's what you want, because you want to be able to just focus in on the task at hand. And not only will you have a better workout, you'll get it done a lot faster. The only thing I'll say with lifting that you can't get into that isolated state as frequently or as easily is you have to have rest times. Running, you're always running. You might have some rest periods if you're doing some track workouts or whatever, and you have some easier paces, but for the most part, your legs are always moving. You don't stop. And so, but with lifting, you're supposed to stop so you can put, max effort into each set. And so because you have those rest periods, sometimes you can kind of lose track of time or get distracted or start talking to somebody in between a set. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to lock in the same way that you can during a run.
So what made Brock, the meathead, the cut up bodybuilding Brock, want to get into running? Was there a specific moment where you want to just dive into it, or what did that whole process look like?
I don't even know, to be honest. Looking back, I always hated running like most people. I was like, why would someone do this for fun? This is pretty stupid. But I actually did a 10K before the pandemic. There's this really popular avenue in Richmond called Monument Avenue, and it has like well, it got taken down, but like the Robert E. Lee statue and a bunch of other statues, Arthur Ashe, a bunch of people kind of specific to the Virginia area typically. And anyway, they always do a 10K around there. It's like sponsored, blah, blah. It's like a big race. Besides like the marathon, it's a pretty big race in the area. And yeah, I was like, let me try this 10K. And at the time, I thought that was the longest thing I've ever seen. I was like, 6 miles. That's crazy. The most I've ever ran is like 2 miles or something like that. And I was like, again, like a freshman. I was actually, this was like, I think months, yeah, this was months before my bodybuilding show. So I was just kind of using it as extra fun cardio because I always felt like the cardio running was like burning more calories, or it was harder than my usual cardio. Cardio for bodybuilding and just to lose weight looks like this. It looks like Stairmaster. It looks like incline walk on a treadmill. Minimal effort, not that intense, although the Stairmaster is intense, but like incline walk on treadmill or like a slow cycle bike, it's not that intense. You're just trying to burn calories. That's the goal. Suffer not that much, just burn calories. Not only because who wants to suffer, but also because you don't want to add more fatigue and stress on your legs if you got to train them the next day, right? So lightweight kind of, or light intensity cardio. But running for me was like a fun little thing I'd mix in there just because I felt like it was kind of hard. I'd run a mile or two, and that would be like part of my cardio regimen. So I kind of got into running a little bit like that, super short distance. It'd be a mile or two or 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever I do. Did the 10K, and I was like, man, I finished the 10K, and I remember having like a little bit of like a tear stream down my face, like on the last mile, just because I was like, man, like I never thought I could run like 6 miles. And like growing up as a chubby kid, I just felt like, I don't know, it was like a moment of realization. I was like, man, I've like come a long way. Like I'm not the kid that used to feel insecure or picked on or whatever for being chubby or looked down upon, whatever. And
so much confidence that can come from
yes,
from
exactly.
training.
From training, from like I said, manipulating your body. All of it comes from that. And so anyway, I did the 10K and didn't really think much of it. Did the bodybuilding show in that like winter. So that was like in the spring. Did the show in the winter. Pandemic happened, and I was like, oh, like gyms are kind of shutting down. And at this time, I was dropping out of college as well, which we could kind of dig into. And I was going to pursue more of like my freelance work and also pursue opening my gym and all this stuff. So it was like this moment of a lot of things changing and going on. And I don't even really remember. I think it was seeing some hybrid athletes like a Nick Bear, like these different people that I've seen on Instagram. And I was like, oh, like these are some kind of like jacked guys that are running. And I was like, you know, let me try this running stuff a little bit. So I got into that, and you know, one thing after another. You know how the drug is. You start running 1 mile, then you're like, let me try 2, let me try 4, let me try 6. You know, and you know, it's just amazing. You see, like, wow, I can actually run this far, and you start to fall in love. Another big inspiration, like everybody else, David Goggins, right? You listen to that podcast, and you want to run through a brick wall like the Kool-Aid Man, you know, and so like listening to that, I was like, man, this ultra stuff sounds absolutely absurd, but let me try a marathon. And so kind of started training there, and then closer to running a marathon, I fell in love with the whole kind of ultra running space, more into Cam Hanes, Courtney Dauwalter, you know, just exploring the whole sport and genre that is ultra running and ultra endurance. And just got hooked mainly because of to kind of answer your question, at least later on in my journey, is I fell in love with the mental aspect of it, as we referenced, more than the physical. Mainly because I thought physically I was never going to be a great runner. One, I kind of resist speed workouts, still do. And and two, I was like lifting, so I felt like I was never going to be an elite runner because I was like, you know, lifting, and I wasn't going to give that up, and I never had any endurance background, blah, blah, blah. But I thought I could bridge the gap mentally. Not to like be an elite runner, but like I could make up for any physical deficiencies with mental toughness, with mental resiliency. And if I could just be harder mentally and through the running become harder mentally, I could just be better in all areas of my life. And so, you know, trying to run just an extra mile this week, just an extra mile that week, started to become, you know, my addiction pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, having that mindset of of it doesn't matter how talented you are or what genetic gifts you might have or might not have, but just if you're willing to outwork anybody else or outwork yourself, more importantly, that's more powerful than any talent or any genetic gift, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you dropped out of college. I know that you started a gym at one point, right? Was that like is that what made you drop out of college, or tell me that whole story?
I'd wanted to open up a gym, just like every lifter. You have the idea, what if I open a gym one day? Or like, I would love to open up a gym one day. Everyone says that. And the funny thing is, most people say it, few people do it. And I say that not in an egotistic or narcissistic way, but because I remember I'd have these old heads in the commercial gym I used to train, be like, oh, I used to want to do that one day too, or blah, blah, blah. And they kind of say it in like a way that like, hey, little kid, that's a cool idea, but when you're older like me, you'll realize the real life is harder, or this or that. And I still get that shit. I remember this one guy message. I was on this other podcast I did with my buddy Austin, and one guy commented and, acted like, and I was like 18 or 19 at the time, and he was like, this guy needs to pick up a tool and do real work. He doesn't know anything about life. And it's like, to an extent, I laugh at the life coaches that are 20 years old or something like that. But to act as if, because of someone's age, they know nothing or they have no experience on life, or, you just make a lot of assumptions that end up being false. But I digress. So I was mainly dropping out of school because I realized I was making much more money doing freelance video editing work than I was ever going to make personal training. So as soon as I could become a personal trainer, which was 18 years old, get my certification, I did that towards the tail end of high school. So in like the spring of like before I graduated, got my NASM CPT, and as soon as I could, applied, and I actually got hired as a personal trainer at my university, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. I got hired as a personal trainer at the university gym before I was even enrolled as a student, or like around the same time. So I was like enrolled to go there in that fall, but I started personal training there in like June, so before like August classes. And so it's kind of funny because they were like, oh, like, what class you in, or blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I actually haven't started like my degree at all. But so started doing that.
Have you always had this?
Go ahead.
Have you always had this like entrepreneurial?
Yeah. So
passion.
I'm going to make it, and I know I say I'll make it a short story, and I've been rambling a lot, but I'll make this a short story. Always as a kid, tried a million different things. Specifically, a lot of my video editing skills, which aren't like insanely elite, but I'm, very proficient, used to using Final Cut Pro, because from 11, 10, 12 years old, was making all kinds of stupid videos, lightsabers, Harry Potter effects, cloning myself, everything you could imagine. But through that, fooling around, I developed skills that people pay a lot of money for, that both you do and I do. And luckily, those skills I developed fooling around at 12, 13 years old has afforded me almost everything I have today, which it's funny to think about it that way. But very entrepreneurial spirit from a kid. I like I said, I was not like a loner or a true outcast at all. I had friends. I wasn't like a loser by any means, but I was very independent from like a young age. I think as my brother got older, he was 4 years older than me, so he was always in like the next school above me, I kind of didn't have like him to kind of lean on. He was very musically inclined. I was more athletically inclined. And then, through school, I was just, I don't know, very independent. I do different stuff. I tried to be like a rapper at one time.
Dude, I had that stage too.
Everybody, yeah. I tried to be a rapper. I thought I'd be a photographer. I thought I'd be like a film director. I kind of had that like 5, 6 years old mindset of, you can be anything you want to. And I think we should aspire to attain more of that childlike curiosity and that childlike excitement about the world, because I think too many people, the older they get, they kind of get crushed by reality. And instead of trying to resist and push back and say, hey, yeah, things are a lot harder. I can't just be an astronaut or the president of the United States just because I want to. But there's a lot I can do. There's a lot of steps I can take to actually live out my passions in a more realistic manner.
I think that mindset is so important to have. Like you mentioned that the old guy telling you can never start a gym because it's, I used to think about that, but they let reality.
People try and they try and fix it or put their failures onto you. They try and say, because I couldn't do this, you can't. But it's like, you're not me, you know?
I think it makes them feel better because
it does. Yeah.
I don't know if there's some sort of regret there or, unfulfilled passions or what it is, but they want it to do it, but maybe through you not being able to do it either, it justifies themselves.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. They're looking for some kind of justification, and they project their own regrets onto you.
Right.
But anywho, so I got to the point back in college, if we fast forward a little bit, where I was making fine money, part-time working personal trainer, doing classes in school, but I was also working an extra, 2 to 6 hours a day, video editing, just random stuff. Maybe it wasn't that many hours, because it's ramped up more so after I dropped out, but at least an extra hour to 4 hours a day. I started to build up this clientele of real estate agents primarily. It was also some small businesses on websites like Fiverr, but then I brought them beyond Fiverr just to work personally so I wouldn't get the old fee that they charge. And but I was developing this clientele, and I was like, man, I'm doing this work during class, after class, between class, and I'm making a lot more per hour doing this stuff than I am personal training. And so I was like, man, I did the math, and I was like, shoot, I can literally make a living doing just this video editing. If I drop out, instead of turning down a few clients like I was at the moment, I could just take on all the clients and do this full time and make way more money. And so I presented that to my now wife, at the time girlfriend, Maddie, and she was kind of in tears and in shambles at first. She was like, what do you mean you're going to drop out? What are you going to do? How do you know that's going to work? And a lot of fear. And then a lot of it, and this is how I felt too, was what are the parents going to say? What are people going to say? Now my parents, they're going to have to tell their friends, oh, Brock dropped out of, university or college or whatever. And, you could say, well, I mean, you're dropping out because you're making a great living, right? It's like, yeah, but it's perception, it's cultural norms, it's expectations. And even today, if my parents hear this, they'll be like, oh, that's not true. But they still don't fully respect or understand what I do. Even when I owned a gym, a physical gym, a thriving business, even when I make as much money as I do doing what I do, even when I do a paid social ad with Hoka or Optimum Nutrition, they're like, oh, that's cool, but, you should start thinking about your resume or your career, And it's just a cultural difference, right? They don't understand it. And, it's also a factor of understanding what's important to you. I don't ever want to work the same career for decades. I don't want to climb a corporate ladder. I don't want to be stuck in this rat maze that is, cultural expectations. I'd rather never make six figures, slave away, or I'd rather never make six figures, only make 30, 40 grand a year, make enough to live and, do whatever, but be doing things I love, be doing things that fulfill me, that excite me, that spark my curiosity, that garner my enthusiasm, than, making 200 grand a year doing finances for Capital One and just hating my life and coming home exhausted. And it's just it's not how I want to live my life. So, I presented that to wife, to family. They thought I was crazy. They're like, well, just stay one more semester and then see if you change your mind or something like that. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, no, dude, I'm dropping out. This is a waste of money. Because the thing too that a lot of people go into degrees for, they go into degrees that kind of do nothing for them. I was going into exercise science, which is basically every high school athlete was like, oh, that has sports science. I'll do that. You know what I mean? So that, you have a ton of athletes, you have a ton of people that work out or whatever that take exercise science. But the truth is, what does an exercise science get you? Well, you can go chase your CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach. You could lead that into a personal or physical therapy. You could lead into a few things, but for the most part, those require other certifications or further schooling. But it alone only really gets you a personal training job. And I was like, dude, I was a personal trainer before I even went to, college. So it's like, you don't need this. And I was making more doing the video editing, blah, blah, blah. But fortunately for me, is the pandemic happened. That sounds like an awful thing to say. But
how dare you?
But I only say fortunate because it gave me the chance to fully drop out, because classes went fully virtual. I was like, shit, I'm not even doing this virtual work. I kind of just let it fizzle out. And by then, my parents just accepted it, you know?
Dude, I have a political science degree, so you are speaking to the choir about
Yeah.
useless degrees.
Dude, yeah, political science is one of it's all right. I'd give it like the three most useless degrees, in no order: exercise science, political science, and psychology.
Dude,
The most pointless ones, dude.
yeah, and it's like the only reason I even pursued that was because my parents put in my head when I was in
Yes.
like middle school that I should be an attorney. And so
Oh,
all through middle school, all through high school, I never really know what I wanted to do. But I was like, oh, well, my parents say I should be an attorney, and they tell me I kind of have like the persona and maybe the mindset to be a good
what do your
attorney.
parents do?
What do they do?
Yeah.
One is a human resource manager and one is a nurse. So like,
Okay.
I mean, pretty like standard like 9 to 5
Yeah. At least
corporatized
one of them went
jobs.
to like a fair bit of schooling though with nurse. You probably had to go through some other programs after a 4 year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just again, I never knew exactly what I wanted to do, but it's crazy how similar our origin stories are in
If
that
you,
like
yeah.
and
I was
I
gonna
started
say,
editing video,
yeah.
making dumb ass GoPro videos with my
Oh
friends,
yeah.
like it's just the dumbest stuff.
Uh-huh.
But through that, learning this skill where it never even occurred to me until I was in college of like, wow, you can actually monetize video editing. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the internet and social media just exploded that whole industry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, referencing like nurses, and maybe your mom loves it, so I'm not speaking for her. And there's certainly nurses that do love it, but I talked to a lot of nurses that are either my wife's friends or uh, people I knew that were members at the gym, and a lot of them like regret the job. Like the work they know is meaningful and it's purposeful, but they look at it like, man, I went through all this schooling, I'm working ridiculous hours, I'm exhausted. They're emotionally drained from all the people they have to take care of that are sick or dying. And it's tough because we need those people, but the debt they go into and the commitment that it requires of them is just like brutal, you know. Not
Yeah,
to go
man, I
deep
think
into that, but
no, I mean
yeah,
honestly, I think that's most people that just work a 9 to 5 corporatized kind of job
yeah,
where like you said they're probably in a bunch of student debt from years of schooling.
yeah,
They're not at a place that they love. They're not like doing something that they're truly passionate about. But I think it seems like nowadays it's more normalized, at least for our generation, to be a solopreneur or
yeah.
start a business and do some sort of freelance work or whatever it is to be self-employed. So all that being said, let's go back to you starting a gym. So you dropped out of college. Actually, I have one other follow-up question regarding
Yeah,
that.
do
Like,
it.
how hard was it, or was it hard at all to kind of ignore what your parents were telling you, what Maddie was telling you, friends of like, was that
Yeah.
difficult to say no to them and just keep your head down and go down the path that you wanted to go down?
It wasn't hard because a lot of decisions I've made, I've just kind of through lifting, I just became more and more, because lifting is a very independent sport, more and more apathetic, fuck you, excuse my language if you can't curse on this podcast.
Oh, we're gonna cuss so fucking
Good.
much.
I came very much like averse to other people in a sense that I don't think it was like overly healthy, but I meant it more in like a not screw other people, but more so I'm going to do what I want. Like it was more focused on me, more focused on, what I want out of things. And so, slowly I was making more decisions just on myself. I dropped out of, or I stopped playing like baseball in high school, which like was like my dad's, dream for me was just playing baseball. And, so that was a tough decision, but I committed to that, committed to lifting. Um, there was other decisions I'd make that would be kind of, against the grain or against what my parents would prefer for me. Uh, I got this tattoo on my hand, which my, hand and forearm that, my parents were not on board with at all. And, and so I just made a number of decisions like that to where I knew that what I wanted was more important than what someone else wanted for me.
That's an important mindset to have.
Yeah, and so it wasn't that hard of a decision to make, although a little bit of there was some nerves. It wasn't like it was more the unknown that scared me. It wasn't like I was scared that I wasn't gonna have money or that I wouldn't figure things out. I had this confidence in myself that if a business I own's failing or whatever happens, like I will make it work. Like I'll do the grunt work, I'll figure it out, I'll scrape by. I'll make it happen. I'll fight off the wall. But it was more the unknown. Like, What are people going to say? I have all this free time now. And this also happened during the pandemic where everyone had free time because there was like nowhere to go, nothing was open. So it was like this weird thing where it's like, man, it was like this first moment of my life where, you know, I don't have an obligation like school. It's just me. I'm living in an apartment with my girlfriend. I don't have anywhere to be. It's all up to me. I can make as much money as I can work, but I have to go like get the work. I have to find the work. I have to do the work. It's the world is your oyster. You know what I mean? So like that unknown and that uncertainty that we all eventually face at some point after you graduate. You know, you become an adult and you make your own decisions. It comes with a lot of anxiety in a way, right? You know, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what your next day or week's going to look like. So I think
that's what deters most. I think that's what deters most people from pursuing their passion or
100%,
leaving a 9-to-5 job and being self-employed is the unknown, because it's not a beaten path like it is to climb the corporate ladder. Like, you know exactly, okay, in 5 years I'm going to be promoted here and here and here.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have that when you're owning your own business.
Structure.
You have this like resistance mindset, right? It's fuck you to anybody. No, I mean, I say that. I mean, I don't know if that's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but basically it's honestly a very similar mindset that I've had forever. It's just do what you want to do and be the best version of yourself. And through that, you can inspire other people to do the same and hopefully make the people around you better. But anyways, so did you start the gym during the pandemic, like in the middle of the shutdowns and stuff?
So not in the middle of the shutdowns. So it wasn't like I was doing something completely unheard of, but it was still in the pandemic. So it was before vaccines and all that. So we opened in November 2020. So it was maybe like 6 months after, 7 months maybe after like the big explosion of like, you know, March, April time.
Was it getting funding during that time? Because it's
I didn't. So here's the other thing that, you know, people love to share their uneducated opinions on Instagram about when I had like a reel or two go viral that was showing, I opened a gym in a pandemic. And I didn't have funding. I saved up all the money by myself. And so I spent basically a year and a half, 2 years, absolutely kind of grinding. And, you know, so I mean, I'd work personal training job and that would cover my expenses and a smidge over it, you know. And I will say I was blessed to not have the college debt because my parents had put some money away for me, so I didn't leave college with debt. So call me privileged. I don't give a shit, whatever you want to say. And then, but regardless, I put in the work. I put my nose to the grindstone and edited thousands of videos to save up enough money to then invest it all. Basically, I dumped my life savings into the gym. And
how much was that? Do you remember the exact number?
Yeah, it was.
If you can say it, I don't know.
It was like 80 grand. Okay. So it was like 80 grand I had like saved up, give or take people. And,
was that all? So when you were grinding and just saving, did you have a benchmark number where you're like, okay, this is how much I need to have?
I had a budget in mind. I knew like what equipment we needed to start with. I knew roughly what things were going to cost, but the biggest lesson I can tell people about a gym, about any business is, one, you're not going to know everything, and two, you don't have to know everything to figure it out along the way. The biggest thing you're going to be able to gain is experience, right? Like you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want on how to run a marathon. You actually have to do the work. You actually have to run the marathon. It means nothing. Like I can watch as many Courtney Dauwalter, Billy Yang documentaries as I want. I still haven't ran a 100-mile race. It means nothing until I experience it myself, right? It's the same way with a business. If you haven't owned a business yourself, you can, you know, an MBA helps and talking to mentors helps, but actually doing it, actually dealing with the behind the scenes stuff, dealing with the lease, dealing with contracts, all that stuff, accounting, until you do it, you don't know it. You know what I mean? So I saved up all that money. Again, if you want to call it like crazy, it's like you understand as a freelancer, you can make good money. And if you really like, you know, work hard and again, penny pinch and save all your money, you can do things. And another important note too is I worked all through high school. So that was some savings. And also I paid off my car from all that work in high school. So I didn't have that car debt either. So that's another thing to consider. before people
That's
try
huge for a ton of people.
People try and poke holes in my story. Like
Dude, you're like hyper disciplined.
If anything, I'm stupid and I should have gotten funding. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to do a flex thing. Like, look, I just spent all my life savings on this. Like, I know it's not the smartest decision ever. I'm just telling you what I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's Matt Choi was telling me about it the other day. It's like, what did he call it? Delusional confidence. That's exactly what it is. Is like
it's what you need.
Yeah, it's having that confidence in yourself that nobody else does, and to most people it just seems crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I could go into spiel about philosophy book Soren Kierkegaard's idea of faith with that one.
Let's go into it. I want to hear about it.
Hold on for a minute. Let's write it down or something. We can come back to it, but we'll stick on the gym for now. But the gym, so save up all that money, invested also. So that was the deal with the funding. The biggest challenge was twofold. One was getting a landlord to give a 19-year-old a chance in the middle of a pandemic, which we tried. I think it took the 5th property. This is also something that I have logged on YouTube. So you go on my YouTube channel, you can watch the whole kind of build out series. We toured a bunch of properties that we got turned down from. You can see the whole renovation, all of that on my YouTube as well, if you dig back far enough.
That's awesome. And you documented all that.
Yeah, it is really cool. I wish I documented even more details. But so we got turned down by a number of properties, various reasons, or there's certain ones we didn't go with because, a variety of reasons, either price or location or whatever. So it was pretty difficult to find what we were looking for. We were looking for kind of like a warehouse style gym. Doesn't have to have AC, but helps if it does. And eventually we stumbled along a property that hadn't had a tenant for like 6-7 months. So the landlord was starting to become a little more desperate because they were, losing profit. And was in a pretty good location, pretty central spot, and warehouse style. It had some office siding too, which we wanted because I needed an office to still do like my video work, which we can get into in a minute. How I was the pro and con lessons learned of managing multiple businesses at once. But I also had a friend of mine that owned a supplement company, and I knew I was going to sublease a spot to him for a number of reasons. That it'd be helpful to have a supplement company in house, make extra profit. He would, he was interested in getting like a space himself, so it would just kind of all made sense there mutually. But stumbled upon a property, fortunately got like a lease signed, and that was just like a whirlwind and a rush feeling of finally getting someone to say yes. Like just finally getting someone to give us a chance was kind of crazy. And then signing a lease that was at the time for 5 years, signing a lease for 5 years where the, the rent was like $3,500 a month, and not including electric or water or things like that. And you're like, damn, that's a lot of money I got to make for 5 years with when you have nothing to show for it. The good thing is we did get the lease signed with, and this is a tip that you can negotiate depending on the landlord and situation, but we did get the first 3 months free basically, so that we could kind of build out the place, renovate it, and because at the end of the day, the landlord wants you to be successful, so he gets his money, So the landlord gave us those 3 months, basically. So the lease was more so 5 years and 3 months. It just got tacked onto it. But those first 3 months gave us time to kind of renovate the place, gut the place, which was a whole thing I could dig into. And but that was a hell of an experience. And eventually got the place up and running November 2020. And the other thing, because since I mentioned it was 2 big problems. So one, like I mentioned, was the lease. The other big problem, to make it short, was getting equipment in. So manufacturing was obviously difficult because all of our supplies coming from other countries was halted because of the pandemic. So, there's different decisions we had to make with what we could buy, what we could find. Certain stuff got delayed and so forth. So that was another challenge we had to overcome.
Did the business end up being successful, or how did it work? How did it end up panning out?
So the business is great and it's still running. We sold it back in June, right before we moved to Colorado. So we conveniently found a seller.
You had it for like 18 months-ish, maybe?
Basically like 18 months, which is kind of crazy to think, this is like your baby. This is like a dream you had, and then you sell it 18 months later. But that just shows how much life can change, especially in your 20s. Your interest, your life, what you need out of life, what you need out of your environment can change so fast. And to be able to recognize that. And again, a lot of my ability to have that flexibility comes down to the freelance editing that I do and how I can do that remote. So I could like pick up my income and kind of move, and conveniently finding a buyer that was interested in buying the gym, but who wants to buy something that's not thriving? So to tail that back, the gym actually, we were blessed to be in kind of a rural-ish area. It was like on the outskirts of some like nicer urban towns or areas that like I kind of grew up in.
This is in Virginia.
This is in Virginia, yeah. And so our gym was right on the outskirts, not in like the heart of this city, but in Ashland. So Ashland is kind of a rural-ish city or town, I should say, to where there's plenty of like some land and some farms, but there are plenty of suburbs, plenty of like well-developed high schools and stuff. But there's not a ton of shopping centers. There's not a ton of like urban development. But what comes with that is some real like just honest, good working, genuine people. And a lot of like blue collar people, firefighters, police fighters, policemen, firefighters, contractors, just hardworking people. Like I said, blue collar work. And so with that, they love small business. They love supporting small business. And then again, we were close enough to the city of Richmond, close enough to these other areas and towns that had some more wealth or some more populated areas and good location. So like we had a good, and again, Maddie and I, my wife, who opened it with me, we had connections around other gyms. We'd been around the area, so people knew of us as well. So that helped get the word out. But we had good support from the community from the jump, which helped us basically stay in the green line, stay in the profit range from day one, basically. So we were fortunate enough to, get members, day passes, week passes to kind of kickstart us early on. I remember, I'll just shout him out randomly. There's this one older guy that used to work out, or maybe still does work out at this gym I worked at, called American Family Fitness. And he was, I think, one of the only guys that, so I talked to a bunch of older dudes when I worked there, but he was the only one that actually came to the gym when I opened it. And he came on the second day we were open, when we had like kind of nobody coming in, which is a funny experience. When you first open a business, you have a big grand opening and like no one the next day. But he came in the next day, paid for a full year up front, never showed up. He just wanted to basically like support us. And
cool.
Things like that, and family members supporting, friends supporting. And so I'll never take for granted, what people kind of did for us in supporting us and, spreading the word. So yeah, from day one, word was slowly getting out. We had some high school kids sharing the words a little bit too. So we had a couple high school members that I kind of took under my wing as, like my little little chickens or something like that, and it was it was a hell of an experience. A lot of reinvesting, basically the entire time we were there, we could have taken out like profit or written ourselves paychecks. We just reinvested it all. Like at the end of the day, besides the sale, we had some excess income too that we took, but we just reinvested. By the time we left, we had nearly tripled the amount of poundage and plates we had. We had replaced we had 2 power racks and a squat stand to start. We ended up with 2 power racks, 3 combo racks, which if you look up what combo racks cost, that's, more impressive. We added and we went from 2 deadlift platforms that were like DIY to like a big 8x6 Rogue one, and then 2 other nicer deadlift platforms I had bought. We did a whole order with what you call it. I can't even think of it right now. But we got a ton of nicer, newer equipment. Assault. No, I'm gonna fuck it up. It's not Assault. Arsenal strength. There we go. Arsenal strength equipment. So if you know, or however it goes, if you know, that's what it is. Then that's great equipment. It added so much to the place, and so it was cool to just see the growth over that time, both in members and awareness in the community and actual quality we were bringing to the gym and all of that.
And how old were you when you first started the gym in 2020?
Opened it at 19, or no, 20. Sorry, 20. Yeah, it had to be 20. Yeah, so I opened it at 20. Yeah, 2020.
Damn, dude, I don't know the exact numbers on it, but I would imagine there's not a lot of 20-year-olds who are able to start a gym through their own funding, nonetheless, and B, are able to build a successful business and a successful gym pretty rapidly within, you said like 18 months, but by the time you sold it. So like, did you know how to run a business like that? Or where did all that knowledge come from? Was it just a lot of trial and error, or was it through YouTube or networking, or how did you figure out as a 20-year-old how to run a successful gym?
As Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? I didn't get punched in the face, but you go in with a plan, right? You have an idea of how things are going to work. You have an idea of the budget. The budget was, pretty accurate. That's a little easier to figure out how much things cost and estimates. But as far as, how you're going to get members and how you're going to run the place and software and all that and transaction fees and all these other things that are more boring to think about, you have a plan, but you end up adjusting, making it up as you go, going with the flow, figuring it out, making up for your mistakes, doing all those things. And so I had no business experience. I mean, I worked at a gym, I was a personal trainer and so forth, but at the same time, I didn't, you don't know how to manage a gym until you manage a gym. And how I manage a small, I say small, is like 6,000 square foot facility. Managing a strength training facility is very different than managing a Planet Fitness or a commercial gym or a franchise, right? So it was a lot of learning as you go. And, as much as it was successful, it could have been far more successful. And it's not any regret I have. It's more just lessons I've learned, One mistake I made a lot that I speak on all the time on my own podcast is delegation. So I never hired anybody. We had one intern just because he was at a local university and helped out a lot and wanted to get some hours for his internship. But we never hired anybody as a employee. And it's not because we couldn't. It's because in my mind, if we don't need to, we shouldn't. But just because you don't need to doesn't mean you shouldn't. Because what turned out happening is just I was taking on too much, I would be in the office working, doing my video editing, 6 to 8 hours of editing a day or whatever, and I'd personal train a client or two as well. And then I'm also signing people up. I'm also replacing, paper towels out there, doing the trash cans, cleaning the gym. I'm also restocking the fridge. I'm also cleaning the toilet that just, men love blowing out the old toilet there, right?
All that pre-workout going straight
and
in
I'm
there.
also fixing the hole in the wall, And I was blessed to have a lot of help with certain things. My dad helped a shit ton with renovating the place when we first opened it. And, he patched a wall or two as well. And, I had another member too, as I mentioned, some blue-collar workers that, would help drill something or help out. But, it's I took on too much. And that was the biggest decision I had to make with moving was I need to get this gym out of my life, not because I'm not happy or not because it's not fulfilling or I don't love these people. I do all of those things, but I need more mental space in my life. And I needed that for creativity. I needed that for other passions I had. So that was part of the reason for moving was I just need to get away. It's not like I want to get away from my family. It's not like I didn't have a great life. And I obviously did and still do. But sometimes you just know when you need separation to elicit growth in your life. And so delegation was a big mistake I made. We never ran advertisement, which it's not to say that we would have done way better if we did run ads, but having more of a strategy for member acquisition could have been more purposeful rather than just purely word of mouth and different community events we would do to spread awareness. There's a variety of things we could have done better. But again, that's I think every business owner probably goes, hey, I could have done all these things differently when I first opened, right? So you take those and you try and make good on them later on.
Yeah, that delegation aspect is something that I've really started to learn and figure out on my own. Which
you take on a lot as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of gotten to the point now over the last 6-8 months for myself where I think I'm at the point where I got to start either hiring somebody remotely or hiring somebody to help me take on some of this stuff, because it's like that saying of if you're working on the business, or sorry, if you're working in the business, you're not working on the business. And it's so true. If you're in the day-to-day of, like you said, you shouldn't be the one, cleaning equipment and putting paper towels out or whatever. You have to your business is never going to grow because you're working in the business. And so you have to kind of make that mindset shift, which is tough because when it's something like your baby or like your brand, you want it to look and feel a specific way to your standards.
It's hard to let it go.
Yeah. And being willing to give that up and trust other people, I think is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So after you guys sold the business, you moved out to Colorado Springs. What made you choose Colorado Springs of all places?
So we originally came out to Colorado last January, so a little bit over a year ago. And we checked out Denver. We spent a week here, basically. So most of the days were in Denver, and we spent one day in Colorado Springs. And so our Airbnb was there. We're checking out Denver, mostly just enjoying the city. But we did meet with one realtor that I've worked with remotely. And I met with her. We're looking at some houses up in this area called Fort Lupton, which is like a rural-ish area that's maybe like 30 minutes north of Denver. They were having some new construction homes because a lot of homes, obviously Denver's stupid expensive like any city. Also, we don't really need to be in the hustle and bustle. And it was still hard to find a home at that time. And so we also looked at Colorado Springs, and I knew a realtor there as well. So I met with her and saw the new construction community that was being built at the time. And loved it. It was in our price range, and we noticed that Colorado Springs was a little bit more lax, a little bit more free, a little bit less busy, obviously, than Denver. It doesn't have as good restaurants. It doesn't have as much entertainment. It doesn't have those things, but it's closer to nature. The mountains are right in your face, even more so than Denver. They're right in your face, a lot more trails, and like it's a slower pace of living here. And so we ended up liking Colorado Springs more. And fast forward, now we've lived here for like 7-8 months.
Nice. I feel like you guys have been there for longer. Maybe just, I don't know. It
feels longer in some way. Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's just, so much has happened, so much we've, done. It's our first house. We've done so many things and, learned a lot and had to, buy this or renovate that or paint this. And so it's felt like a long 7-8 months. Yeah.
How has your experience been, or I guess how is the experience as a whole moving across the country? Because Bree and I mean, we moved from Wyoming to Hawaii for a year, from Hawaii back to Wyoming, and then went from Wyoming out to North Carolina, down to South Carolina, and then out to Texas. And it's a lot picking up and moving. Luckily, when you don't have kids or anything like that, it's easier.
Where's your family based?
Wyoming.
And hers?
We're all from Wyoming initially.
Oh, okay. Bree as well?
But it's a lot to pick up and move and go across the country, especially to where it's somewhere where you don't know anybody. Like, do you know anybody in Colorado Springs or?
So let me answer both questions. So like one, moving's really difficult. Like I remember we moved to like 3 different apartments in 3 or 4 in Virginia before we moved out here. And just moving in general, it just sucks, dude. It's like you gotta pack up a lot of stuff. As soon as you get comfortable, you feel like you're moving again, and it's just like a pain in the butt. And and then just moving across the country, you end up getting rid of a lot of stuff, which is good that you don't need.
You don't realize how much shit you actually have.
Yes,
you have to pack it up and move it.
So there's that. But we spent 3 days driving across here, 8 hours a day, and as much as brutal as that sounds, it went by really fast actually. And so that experience wasn't too bad. Although it's tough moving. We were literally talking about it last night at Denver or at dinner. That we miss our family in a way. Not even that we want to see them all the time, but just being able to see them when we want to, seeing them every week or once a month or whatever it is, just seeing them more frequently would be nice. Having those free dinners that your family or your parents offer you is also very nice, as I'm sure you can relate to. And, little things like that, are nice to have. What was the other question you had?
Basically just like, I guess building off of that would be moving to a place where you don't know anybody.
Yes, that's what it was. That's what it was. No, I still don't know anybody. Like we know our neighbors basically, and Maddie knows some people. Like we know this one couple that also works out, so like we're pretty familiar with them. They watch our dogs, we watch theirs. They go out of town, blah blah blah. So that's nice to have.
Does
And
Maddie work
Maddie,
remotely too from home?
no, so she works as a personal trainer at a gym called Vasa. She was just a personal trainer. She actually recently got promoted, so now she's like the manager of personal trainers at a different location, um, which has been like great and like doubled her income. But it's been like a little bit tough on us because her schedule is just a little bit different now, and I feel like she's away home or yeah, away from home more, and it just sucks when I like work from home and I'm kind of at least I have the dogs, you know, but just getting that personal connection with her, and I wish I had more of it. But no, we still don't really know anybody. Like she has some friends at work and like you know coworkers and so forth, but most of my friends are people like you, people I've never met, or like I met up with, you know, that guy Mike today, or different people in Denver that, you know, I've met through like Instagram or social media, and great people. We connect off the bat. You know, it's great, but either they don't live here, or I live like an hour south, and so I'm not driving up to Denver all the time to hang out, you know, and this and that. So it's been a struggle. Now, I will say I'm like an introvert, as I mentioned. I'm very like independent, so I don't need a bunch of social interaction. I don't go clubbing. I don't, you know, I don't do any of that stuff. I don't need to be out and about. But still having like your kind of what do they call it? Your tribe. You know, finding like your tribe and finding like the people you want to surround yourself with that kind of lift you up or that you can rely on or you know go on a run with or this or that. I have not been able to develop that. I wouldn't say I've like actively tried that hard. But I wish I wish I had more of that now, and I hope over the years you'd hope I develop some more friends here.
Yeah, it's there's a balance to it in that like you don't want to be a try hard and like going out all the time, you know, like in everybody's face trying to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
But at least in my experience, like you do have to put some effort into it to like go to a run club or go out to a coffee shop and
Yeah.
be willing to just talk to a stranger or be like, I don't know, ask them some random question just to spark a conversation. And 9 times out of 10, like you're going to end up having a good conversation with them and, you know, maybe getting phone numbers or whatever. But that was definitely something that I dealt with. Like when we moved to Hawaii or moved to the Carolinas, was like, I didn't know a single soul there. And so, you know, working remotely like you do, and you're just at home by yourself all the day, all day long. It's like, it's hard to get out and meet people through that. But you guys are liking Colorado Springs
We love
as
it.
a whole?
That's the funny thing. Like as much as you know, we miss some things, we love it. The weather, it's sunny almost every single day. Even when it's like not sunny, it's like cloudy, it's not like as dreary or as humid as the East Coast can be, as you know, in Carolina. Um,
I get so
and
jealous seeing all your trail running pictures, man. That's
yeah,
something I miss so much about being in
yeah,
the
the
Rocky
trails,
Mountains.
having the trails so accessible is just an amazing thing. So like just the out for me as a runner, getting outdoors like that is just beautiful, and just seeing the mountains is just an inspiring view every morning. Like, do you get used to it, and does it kind of get dulled a little bit? Yeah, like you're not like the first day we saw it, it's like oh, you know, like the heaven harp, you know. But now it's like you know we're used to it, but at the same time every day we're kind of driving. You know, if I'm driving with my wife, we'll look over and be like, man, like that looks beautiful. You know, especially if the sun's setting over the mountains or like the clouds are over them, or you see the snow caps like this morning. It's just amazing to see, and you just can't get that at least as easy and as accessible on the East Coast typically as you can out here. And so that's amazing. The weather's amazing, and like I said, as much as I miss a lot of like friends and family in Virginia, this was a change in my life I needed to grow, to evolve, to continue to uh, pursue my creative endeavors and to uh, just develop, you know, as a human being, as an individual, and experience more of life, experience more of the country, face different challenges and experiences head on. You know, like I've if you stay in the same spot all the time because it's certain, because it's comfortable, because you're used to it, it's hard to grow as a person if you stay in the same spot. You know.
Yeah, those are, I mean, some of my best friends that I grew up with are still in my hometown in
Yeah.
Wyoming doing the exact same thing they were doing in high
It's
school.
so
And
easy to fall into that trap, dude. There's so many people that, you know, go to the gym that Maddie and I used to go to that are still there, still work the same job, look the same, do the same stuff. And not to say that they're not happy, you know, it's not to talk down on anybody, to each his own. But like you said, there's so many people I look back and I'm like, you're just following a path that was set for you. You didn't carve that path. You didn't, you know, rake that path and make it yourself. You didn't bushwhack through the bullshit. You're just following uh, what your parents' expectations are. You're following whatever everyone else is doing in the area, and you get stuck.
Yeah, I think it's easier and it's more comfortable. But I'm always such a huge fan of people that are willing to pack up their lives and move across the country, or move out of their hometown at least, and just go somewhere where it's going to force them to grow and be independent. And I think you just learn so much about yourself. You learn what you like, what you don't like. You learn about your values.
Oh yeah.
Like that was at least my experience when Bree and I moved to Hawaii, because we both grew up in this small town in Wyoming. It was like 60,000 people. Everybody knew everybody. It's like very demographically homogenous. Like everybody looks the same. We all talk the same. We all do the same stuff.
Bunch of whiteys.
Literally, yeah, that's what I'm getting to. It's like I think Wyoming is literally
Yeah.
99% whites. So
Yeah.
there's no diversity. It's all like
Yeah.
Republicans. I don't want to go to politics, but
Yeah.
it's just like this very narrow-minded, closed-minded place. And so going out of that and living in Hawaii for a year just opened up our minds to so many things. And it was like as cheesy as it is, like I literally had an epiphany when we moved away of like, wow, I want to do way more than just stay in this small little hometown. And again, to each his own. Like I love all my friends that are back there doing the same thing, but it's just not what I wanted out of life.
Yeah, there is a beauty about the I think the easiest way to picture this is the profession I'm gonna use as an example is there is a beauty in the farmer or the construction worker that just wakes up, same time, gets the same lunch, does the same thing, provides for his family, comes home, goes to bed. There is a beauty in the simplicity and the cyclical nature of someone like that, and of that like pride of I'm just here to provide for my family. I'm not trying to like overdo it or roll the dice. There is a beauty in that simplicity, but some of us, I think, to really reach our fulfillment and our heights that we have for ourselves, the vision that we have for ourselves, we do need to kind of break from those bonds and those barriers and roll the dice.
Speaking of fulfilling our visions and our purpose, do you have like a big 10,000 foot view of what you want to do with your life, or where you want things to go? And I like to ask this to everybody because I'm just so curious about everybody's answer, because when people ask this to me, I have no fucking clue other than I just want to be the best version of myself, basically. But I'm really curious as to what your answer is.
No. The answer is no. For the most part, I think I'm going to lean on something I heard recently, which was the idea of like I'm done making kind of predictions or expectations of where my life's going to be years from now, because 2 years from now, I just opened the gym. I wouldn't have expected myself to be running ultra marathons. I wouldn't have expected myself to be in Colorado. Had no fucking clue. And then if I go 5 years ago and I'm in high school, it's just 5 years, 5 years ago I'm in high school, I would be like, running? Are you kidding me? And then like opening a gym really that fast. And then, oh, there was a pandemic. And like you can never predict things like 5 years from now, let alone even like 2 years is hard to predict. And especially if you're a personality like me or you, where, I don't expect to have dramatic change every year of my life, but I'm definitely in a stage in my 20s where a lot of moving pieces are happening pretty quickly. And before, my wife and I decide to have kids, there are going to be a lot of major decisions and changes in our life. So I'm kind of done predicting where I'll be. But I do have an idea of, certain things I want to pursue. One is growing the podcast. Other is getting involved in other, business endeavors. I wouldn't like to freelance video edit my whole life, but as long as that income is steady and there, and I'm going to use that as a chance and as breathing room to pursue other things and try and establish other forms of income and so forth, so that I can release from that with more confidence. And then but I will say, I have some visions for what I want for my life. I want our next house to have some land so I can have a little shooting range, and I can have a little bit more privacy. And I want a 2-car garage so I can have more of a home gym than I have now, which is my little single car extended. I want more space like that. I have certain things that I want out of my life or my house that are going to cultivate a better mindset, a better experience, a better lifestyle, better environment for myself. So I have a vision of, what I need to thrive, what I need to be happy, what I need to be the best husband, the best father I can be in the future. And so those are the things I'm after. I'm not after a mansion. I'm not after a Lamborghini. I'm not after a certain amount of money. I'm really just after freedom and the opportunity to pursue the things I love with either like no risk or more opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, that was beautifully said. I feel like over the last couple of years for myself, and it's probably something that everybody in their early 20s goes through when they're becoming more independent. But people would ask me that question, and I'm just like, I don't know. And I'm more on the side where you said of like I have certain things I want to do as far as like I want to have land, or I want to be able to travel whenever wherever I want to, and just have like kind of these bigger goals, I guess, but no exact plan or route to achieve those or get there. But I think that I don't know. It's a good mindset to have because I don't know if I have ADHD or ADD and I just get so bored with things so quickly, but I could just never be somebody like where I'm like, okay, I'm going to work this job for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna try and get promoted or do this and just keep ranking up that way. I want to just pursue the things that I find interesting, and that might change. I mean, the things I'm doing now are way different than what I was doing even a year ago or 2 years ago, and I presume that it's going to be the same exact thing. 5 years from now, I'm going to be doing something totally different.
Yeah.
And so I think just having the ability to kind of go with the flow and roll with the punches and do whatever you want to do and just pursue those interests. There's a Sam Harris talk or a lecture that I heard him talk about where he was saying that basically talking about the purpose of life, and everybody has, it's like the $1 million question, right? It's like what is the purpose of life or the meaning of life? And his take on it, which resonated so much with me, was it's just to experience life itself. And that can obviously be very subjective to every single person, but not trying to get something out of life, but instead just experiencing it. And not meaning not like sit back and just let it happen to you, but to go through the ups and downs. Like there's going to be real shitty times, there's going to be really good times, but just embrace the process and the journey of it all. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah, understanding that like whether it's a good moment or a bad moment, it's just a moment in life, right? And we're gonna have a lot of moments, a lot of experiences, and yeah, all you can do is really, like you said, you still want to live actively and intentionally in your life, but at the same time, things happen outside of your control, and all you can do is learn from them, experience them, take away all that you can from that, and move forward.
Yeah, man. Well, it seems like you're doing all the shit you want to be doing, right? Like you built up a gym, you sold the gym, move across the country because you felt like it, you wanted to, and you could. And now you're running, you're lifting. Are you still editing freelance
No
video?
editing. Yeah, yeah.
What other kinds of things are you doing besides running, lifting, and editing, and recording badass podcasts?
Too many things, honestly. One thing I do too much is I have my hands in too many pots, and then as soon as I remove one pot, I sneak another one in there. So I do a lot of things, outwardly on social media, like you mentioned, try and be more consistent that like I used to be on my Instagram. And then a podcast has been a bit, passion project for me, trying to have a good, diverse, quality conversations, just, trying to dig deeper than just surface level with a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, a lot of things in the background as well. One thing I've kind of created as a non-negotiable in my life since we moved here, it's like 8 months, and it sounds silly, but reading. I've like never been a big reader, not like I was adverse to it, but I just never made time for it. I kind of just be like, oh, I'll do it at the end of the day, or I'll do it whenever. But I'm a big kind of routine and structure guy, so I was only able to make it a habitual thing for myself when I, took the strategy of habit stacking it into my morning. I have a very rigid morning schedule and routine. So once I kind of slid it in there, I did it all the time. And reading has, as it would make sense, has become a very enriching experience for me. I've been able to not only expand my vocab because I'll read some of these philosophical books and I'll be like, what the hell does that mean?
You're not just reading, you're like reading like deep, like very intense and I don't know what the word is, but just like very complicated pieces of work.
Esoteric works, yeah, yeah. They're very challenging. The one I'm reading right now is absolutely just I'm defeated. Like
What's
it's
that one?
phenomenology of spirit by I don't know his full name, but Hegel, basically by Hegel,
Okay, yeah.
and it's infamously known for being extremely confusing, extremely difficult, and yeah, it's even worse than I thought. So there's sections I'm understanding, and I'm watching plenty of like this is really great professor on YouTube that has like 20,000 videos, and he has a shit ton of videos on this specific book where he goes literally like paragraph by paragraph. But even
Wow.
with that, it's really difficult book. But yeah, I mean, not all my books are extremely confusing. Some are easier than others. Um, but I just I get a lot from these books. Allow me to expand my horizons and expand my vision of or view of the world of ethics, of morality, of existence, of purpose, of all these different things that philosophy touches on. And yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, to rant a little bit, what's really popular these days is Stoic philosophy. And everyone gets into Stoicism and they love sharing the whimsical quotes and the attitudes and the discipline that resides in Stoicism. But few people actually read anything beyond Stoicism, or few people even read actual Stoic works. They read Meditations or they read Ryan Holiday. And it's like, well, those aren't the primary text. That's not Seneca. That's not Epictetus. Those aren't the actual works itself, and just whether it's philosophy or anything else, just spouting quotes doesn't really mean anything if you don't actually understand the bigger picture and the bigger ideas. And Stoicism is just one school of philosophy. You were touching on Sam Harris and his view of like purpose and kind of letting life happen and experiencing it. Um, you know, I think a great resource for a lot of people would be existentialism, because that really addresses the idea of defining your own purpose. And it's the idea that absent of, if you're not religious and God isn't your ultimate purpose and view in life, then you kind of have to look at life and go, well, damn, life it seems meaningless. But that would be nihilism. So you don't want to fall into nihilism where everything is purposeful or purposeless and nothing matters. So what existentialism offers is a alternate view where man defines meaning for himself. So it's like, ultra running, right? Fulfills you with this experience that you can't get anywhere else. Like driving yourself to push your physical limits, the fulfillment you get from that could be your meaning. As we talked about, just personal development, becoming the best person you can be in a variety of different factors and avenues. That can be your purpose. It could be being the best father, you can be the best mother. It could be impacting as many people in a positive way as you can. But it comes down to the idea of like defining your own purpose, appreciating experience, and all of that. So I mean that's again, I digress, but point is, there's a lot of different avenues of philosophy. It's been a very enriching experience to stick with it and to dig deeper into different works. Whether I fully extend them on the first read or not, I take as many notes as I can. I'm eager to reread them in the future and expand more.
Yeah, I read a lot of excerpts from a lot of the books you mentioned,
Talked
and
about that before,
we've
yeah.
talked about before. Yeah, because like I said, my undergrad was political science, and so it was a lot of philosophy and those historical texts. And it's been a few years since I've read them, so I don't remember a lot of that stuff nowadays. But it makes me just hearing you talk about it and some, like throwing out some of those names, it makes me want to go back and reread some of it, because when I would get really into those works and like try and understand their thinking and some of the ideas, it was just so powerful, and it would. I mean, that's what philosophy is. Is it
You
just
know what
makes
the
you
problem
question
is, though?
everything.
There's a meme. I'll pull it up real quick so I can just quote it. I don't think you need to see it. But the problem with philosophy is there's no definite answers, as you
Right.
know. And so, like, here's the meme. One guy says, "How do you know that anything you said is true?" And then the philosopher says, "That's the neat part. We don't." And so that's the problem with philosophy is there's like a million different takes, right? A million different things, and Karl Marx will say one thing about anti-capitalism, and then other people will vibe for capitalism, and the same thing, and that's just a more political, socio-economical structure. But the same could be said for purpose or existence of does God exist? Does he not exist? You have plenty of people that claim with certainty that he does, and plenty of people that claim with certainty that it doesn't. Do we have free will? Do we not have free will? Referencing Sam Harris as a good person who doesn't believe we have free will, and
his talks on free will will blow your mind.
Yeah, it's quite complicated, but it's also pretty interesting. It kind of ties to some of like the podcast he just did with Lex Friedman was really good because it referenced a lot of things I'm reading now that are in the idea of phenomenology and ontology and the idea of being or existence. So it can get that's another problem with philosophy. So one, like they don't always have certain ideas, and then for the vast majority of the population, they're reading something, they're like, how does this even make sense? What does it even mean? I can't actually apply this to my life, which is why Stoicism, and I still love Stoicism because it's very applicable. People can read Marcus Aurelius or Seneca and be like, oh, I need to add more discipline to my life, or I should learn to let this go. I should learn to not be as greedy or angry. And so it's the most practical school of philosophy. If you read Nietzsche or if you read Pascal or these different philosophers, it's not as apparent to yourself how to apply this immediately to your life or your daily routines. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's cool because, like you said, Stoicism is very tactical, and it gives you like steps to implement. It honestly, like, I know they're different, but they were written around the same time periods. But I believe like the whole Stoic era was around the same time when a lot of the Bible was being written, and just a lot of that like very significant period in history. And so I just find that interesting, and it's I think there's a lot of correlations.
So, funny thing with that, not to go too deep, but I was actually listening to like some kind of either philosophical video or talk or something like that. But they were talking about how Christianity kind of provides some of those Stoic principles or principles of like the golden rule, for example, right? Like treat everyone how you want to be treated. That's ageless. That goes well before the Bible or before the Torah, these different things. And yet people don't really act upon that until they have this, deity to instill that value, right? So once they have this like religious reason or this afterlife to actually act like a good person, they don't. Now they act like a good person. You know what I mean? So to tie what you were saying together.
Yeah, that makes sense because I like with Stoicism, there isn't at least from my remembrance of it, there's no like higher power that they really reference other than maybe like within yourself and like holding yourself accountable. Yeah,
Marcus Aurelius, it seemed like he was more either agnostic or probably more agnostic than atheist because he kind of referenced, which I thought was pretty powerful, the idea that we kind of don't want to talk about, but the truth that we don't know what happens when we dies or when we die, and even if we create like an incredible legacy, or we're like Bill Gates or something like that, well, eventually we're gonna be lost in history. Like the world is gonna end at some point, and our legacy is gonna like die along with it. So like that can't be, what you're fixated on. If that makes sense.
That's where
down.
No, I feel like that's where Stoicism can kind of dip into nihilism a little bit. Where I believe it's Marcus Aurelius that talks about like everybody that is going to be dead eventually. We're going to be
like
dead
the whole
eventually.
Memento Mori or whatever it is.
Everybody that is, basically like you said, the generational aspect of it, of even if the next generation remembers you, they're going to be dead eventually as well. And so I think it can kind of get confusing because it does dip into
That's what I mean. People like to not actually read the Stoic works. They like to just pull out the like fun quotes and show how disciplined they are or whatever. But you got to live it. You got to read and live it.
Well, I didn't expect this to turn into a philosophy podcast, but that's what we're here for.
This is a tank of a podcast, but it's full of good stuff. You can trust me. No bias.
I mean, that's well, no, I believe you. I mean, this is why I wanted to start the podcast, is to have conversations like this, because I mean we chat all the time frequently, but to actually go like in depth and have like a very I don't know the right word, like a just more structured conversation, I guess. I don't know. It's just the beauty of podcasts is it's a good excuse to go deep into some different topics.
The cool thing too is, comparing this conversation to like the first one we did on my podcast, it's funny how well we've gotten to know each other for so long, like how easy it is to just pull up and talk on a voice message or talk on a podcast or talk on, whatever calls we get on, compared to, other people that I'm sure you've talked to or, will in the future on your podcast. And it's like a little bit more rigid. It's a little bit more difficult. So hopefully I've been a little bit of a comfortable ease into doing this remote stuff.
Oh, definitely, man. Yeah, that's the cool thing with the internet, right? Is we've literally never met face to face, but we will here shortly. But
soon,
I feel like we've known each other for ages.
I like turn out to be 5'4" or something like that. I'm just like,
yeah, we were talking about getting catfish the other day.
yeah. That's what I swear. Like I should get like a camera crew, and we'll have like a whole like TLC situation where we meet.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of linking up here, and just what is it, 8 weeks that race?
Yeah, 7-8 weeks. Yeah.
So is that's the next race you have is the Ram Party 50 mile?
No, I have a race before that. So I have a race in 4 weeks in Canyon City called the Royal Gorge Groove. It's a 50K.
Colorado?
It's Colorado. It's only an hour away from me. So it's actually a smaller town that I drove through when I was heading to Crested Butte. So yeah, but so that one's an hour away, and then this the one that we're both going to do is like 30 minutes away. That's why I was telling you. I don't know again like where you're staying at, but either way, I know plenty of good burger spots, good pancake spots that we'll be chowing down. I'll be treating you right while we're in here, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I'm super excited for that. I've spent a little bit of time in Colorado Springs, but definitely never ran up in those mountains.
Yeah. Where'd you go?
Where did I go?
What kind of area in Colorado Springs?
It was for when I played hockey. I think Colorado Springs has the Olympic Training Center there.
Yeah, it does.
So we played there. It's been a while. I mean, that was like middle school, high school, so I don't remember exactly. But like when we drive from Austin up to Wyoming now, we go up there every summer, and we drive through Colorado Springs. We usually stop there and grab food or something. But yeah, so I love Colorado. It's such a cool spot. But so you've got what was the name of the first race you have?
The Royal Gorge Groove.
Royal Gorge Groove. Yeah. That's a 50K?
50K, and then then the Ram Party 50. It's actually changed. It's not a 54 mile. I don't know if you get the same email as me. It got down. It's 51.7 miles now, so a little bit easier.
You better get some money back if you're not getting your full mileage.
Yeah, only 52 miles now.
That would be a walk in the park for you.
I know.
And then what about after that? You got any other races lined up?
I want to do a race in the fall, probably in Utah. There's one race organization that I'm technically an ambassador with, so I got to like volunteer 2 races that are kind of local with them, and then they do races in Utah as well. So I'll probably use like my free race entry for like one in Moab, not like a 240, but like the ones that they do, and do like another 50K or 50 miler, I think something like that in Utah, and kind of make like a trip out of it with my number one crew member, my wife. And so she can enjoy it and not just spend a day with me, just giving me food. So that's kind of like the plan as far as like races. But I don't want to stress it too much. As you and I have talked a million times, we both get so many different things we want to do and busy stuff, and see some family over the summer and so forth, and actually enjoy the area we live and stop working so much and such. So I don't want to kind of have too many races lined up,
Yeah. When are you thinking about doing a 100 miler?
Next year, which is why you and me got to schedule one together.
Dude, let's just get into Leadville or do something crazy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, Leadville would be pretty wild. The first 100 miler, that'd be pretty brutal, but it's a good one to fail at, I guess, if you're going to fail at one, then do it at Leadville.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a bunch of races here, 100 mile races down in Texas, but they're all like flat. I mean, there's no mountains here, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if I'm going to do 100 miles, I want to do like 100 miles, make it not only
I'm the same way, yeah.
But I want to do it in a beautiful place where it has some significance. Yeah. So either I've thought about doing, because I'm doing the Bighorn 50 miler in Wyoming this year, and they have a 100-mile race as well. So I've thought about maybe doing that one next summer as my first one, because that'd be kind of a special one too, just because it's in Wyoming.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Not really sure, but dude, the 100-mile race it's intimidating for sure.
It is, especially when you've done a 50 and I've done a 50, and you get to the end of that and you're like, wow, I can't believe, like, I don't even remember doing 50 miles. Like, it feels like crazy, right? And then thinking about doing like double that, you're like, no.
You very quickly forget how like that mental state that you go into. Because I remember during my 50 miler, the whole I mean, the last like 20 to 30 miles, I'm like, I am never fucking running ever again in my life. I don't care if it's a goddamn community 5K. I'm never running ever again. And then like you very quickly forget. And then, you know, the following week you're out running again. But I think that's kind of where it turns into that slippery slope of like, I did the 50. I'm okay. I survived. Now let's maybe try a 100K or 100 mile.
I always feel like you'll find a way. You'll figure it out, you know, when you're out there.
Yeah, man. Well, I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. But thanks for coming on, dude. Is there a good place for people to try and find you?
Good thing is my name is one and only on social media. So it's just at Brock Covington on Instagram, exactly how it sounds. And on YouTube as well. You can just look up Brock Covington. I pop up. That's a good and bad thing. So if anything bad happens, you'll be able to find me. But the good thing is all my stuff. You can just Google Brock Covington. You'll probably find all the things you need to find. And then please check out my old podcast, Zero Quit Podcast, what it's called. You can find that on all my platforms as well. But if you just look up on Spotify, Apple, I post it on my YouTube channel as well, the episodes. But yeah, talking to a lot of cool people there, including the one and only Jeremy Miller. We've had 2 conversations on there, and we'll probably do a third in person when you're in town, if you don't mind. And yeah, a lot of cool individuals on there as well. A bunch of specialists, creatives, filmmakers, coffee roaster, all kinds of stuff on there. So all good stuff. But yeah, appreciate you having me on, dude.
Sure. All right, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.